Okay, we're going to go from here to this California Ethnic Studies curriculum because I want to camp here for a little bit. He's calling it the Revenge of the Gods. And forgive me, this is the article off of cityjournal.org. If you don't get City Journal, you should. Okay. So we're going to talk right now about an ethnic studies curriculum. Sorry, I'm just going to reset my camera a little bit. There we go. That's better. And that, scoot that out of the way. That's annoying. Okay. Sorry. There's a California ethnic studies curriculum it's winding its way through California Department of Education. They're planning to vote on it. I believe the vote will be this week. They're advocating for the, quote, decolonization of American society, and it seeks to elevate Aztec religious symbolism. And of course, it's all to serve the left-wing political ideology. Folks, if you have your children in California public schools, it is not too late to pull them out. Please pull them out. Please don't leave them in there to be abused by the curriculum. Maybe not by the teachers, but teachers are often foolhardy. They're not inerrant. They sometimes make mistakes, and they sometimes do things that they or follow curriculum that they're unaware of how dangerous it is. So the program's called the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum. If you look it up, you'll find that it's not without a bit of controversy. And there are people coming out saying this is the greatest thing ever, and there are people coming out and saying this is the worst thing ever. And I will boil it down. I'll boil it down for you, but we are going to go through it a little bit. It is the worst thing ever because it seeks to annihilate Judeo-Christian culture. Judeo-Christian culture is the only reason that we have the great lifestyle that we have, all the nice things that we have in this nation, including food, including heat in the winter, including our cars, including our cities, including our politics. Because of Judeo-Christian ethics and the culture that they engendered. So in theoretical terms, this new ethnic studies curriculum is based on the pedagogy of the oppressed. Pedagogy refers to sort of the teaching of, and the oppressed, the teaching of oppression. In other words, it was developed by a Marxist theoretician. Of course, his name was Paulo Freire. He argued that students must be educated about their oppression. See, they don't even know that they're oppressed. We have to teach them that they're oppressed. This is the problem that we have, folks. They must be educated about their oppression in order to attain critical consciousness. There's a new term. These are all going to go in my new, my updated version of my book. Where's my book? Over there. The updated version of my book, Words for Warriors, because they're inventing new words every day. Critical consciousness. So it's not enough to be, and in fact, I tend to agree with this one. It's not enough to be conscious. You have to be critically conscious. You have to be ready to filter what you're hearing through a truth detector. And my truth detector is going blasting all the time these days. Consequently, they are trying to help the students develop the capacity to overthrow their oppressors because oppression is bad. They're instructing teachers to help students, quote, challenge racist, bigoted, discriminatory, imperialist / colonial beliefs. That's really the short form for Judeo-Christian ethics. It's absurd. They're putting it in completely different terms and misrepresenting it, but that's what it is. They're critiquing, quote, white supremacy, racism, and other forms of power and oppression. Mind you, this is racist. So they can't get away with it because it's so patently racist on its face. And yet they will, because they will bamboozle because that's what the left does so well. This approach in turn, he writes, enables teachers to inspire their pupils to participate in, quote, social movements that struggle for social justice and quote, build new possibilities for a post-racist, post-systemic racism society. They are actively trying to create culture warriors. This is directly from the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School came over and infiltrated the US education system and implemented Marxism in our schools. It's very simple. This is Marxism, plain on its face. The guy who created it, Marxist. Do you think that a Marxist wouldn't create something that was in line with his beliefs? And Marxism is a religion because it is firmly affiliated with this new religion that they're calling irreligion, as if it's not a religion, right? There's another one. It's already in the book, but I remember when I first discovered the term irreligion, it predated my discovery of what they've done to fascism because they made it up. So I was like, oh, they're just making up words now. Oh, that's interesting. I guess we needed a word for grouping agnosticism and atheism into one group. Works for me. The reason that they did it is to make it seem like it's bigger than it is, because there's a distinct difference between atheists and agnostics, a very distinct difference. The atheist says unabashedly that there is no God. And for him, he feels like he has proof that there is no God. So he's very keen to simply put it out there. There is no God. Don't try to change my mind. I know what I'm talking about. Apparently, he's been everywhere in the universe. But I wanted to ask him if he checked under Pluto. In any case, he says without broaching any contradiction, there is no God. The agnostic admits that he doesn't know, and I suppose you could say doesn't care, because the evidence is right there. If you wanted to do the research, if you wanted to discover for yourself, the evidence is right there. So this guy, and then I'm going to butcher his name because it's a weird name, R. Tolteca Koughton, something. He was the original co-chair of the Ethnic Studies model curriculum, and he developed a lot of the material, and he wrote a book called Rethinking Ethnic Studies that, of course, features throughout the curriculum, and I'm sure is required purchasing and required reading. And so he believes that the United States was founded on a Eurocentric, white supremacist, which in parentheses is racist, anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, capitalist, which is classist, patriarchal, which is sexist and misogynistic, and heteropatriarchal, which is homophobic, and anthropocentric paradigm brought from Europe. He believes all of that. I could take it all apart and tell you how he's wrong on every count, and I will. The document that he has claims that whites began, quote, grabbing the land, quote, hatching hierarchies, and, quote, developing for Europe whiteness, which created excess wealth that became the basis for the capitalist economy. Whites established a hegemony that continues to the present day, in which minorities are subjected to, quote, socialization, domestication, and zombification. The funny thing is, he's right, because that's exactly what our school system does. But he's wrong with everything else. So even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? Okay, let's talk about, it was founded on a Eurocentric white supremacist. No, it was founded by Eurocentric whites. This is true. To a person, the founders were all white. Correct. But I thought we're not supposed to see color. I thought it's racist to see color. He says that they were racist, anti-Black, and anti-Indigenous. That is patently untrue. Do your research. He says that they were capitalist. Yes, but he equates capitalism with classism, which is completely untrue. The feudal system and the communist system and the socialist system, and even, yes, the fascist system, because it has all of this in common with those other systems, those are all classist. Capitalism is undisputably not classist. That's the difference. He says it was patriarchal and therefore sexist and misogynistic. Okay, men were in power. Okay, but it's not anymore. We had the suffrage movement. We had women's right to vote now. Women's working in the workplace. And don't give me the lie that they make 78 cents on every dollar that a man makes. That's absurd. That's been debunked 8 ways from Sunday. He says that it was heteropatriarchal, and he equates that with homophobic. No, we just understand that a two-parent hetero monogamous relationship is actually the best way to raise a child successfully, period. It's also the best way to have a child because that's how the plumbing works. Okay, let's see. He claims that white Christians committed theocide against indigenous tribes. This is where the whole thing gets very dicey. They committed theocide, killed the indigenous tribes' gods, replaced them with Christianity. This is true in the sense that they sought to evangelize the world. And apparently, according to this guy, you are not entitled to your own opinions. So this is where the left goes completely off the rails. And it's also, strangely, the reason I wrote my book, Words for Warriors. The left says my ideas are right. We don't need to have a discussion. You just have to adopt my ideas. The left says that. The right says, I have ideas. My ideas are right. Hear me out. Which is more fair? Well, obviously, the right side is more fair. Of course, we believe that our ideas are right. And we try to convince other people because we believe that there's value in convincing other people. The left only sees value in, if you believe like they do, you have value probably. And if you don't, they'll kill you. But here's the thing. He doesn't believe in God. His value is atheism. And the left's value is atheism. And so they don't want any other gods. But now they're trying to set the Christians up against the people who worship the Aztec gods. Those 3 people, I guess. I don't know. I'm not really sure what that deal is. So what they're saying is because Christianity was a more popular idea and it displaced other ideas, it has to go. And that is actually the biggest problem with leftism is everything that advances human society has to go. That's why I know I've talked about Hang Nor in the past. And he is the Oscar-winning actor from The Killing Fields, and he actually lived the Killing Fields in Cambodia. And I did a movie with him. He was a board-certified, trained OBGYN. He was a doctor. He also spoke multiple languages. And he understood immediately that he couldn't let them know that he was an educated individual, the Khmer Rouge, because they would kill him because they They don't want you to have an education. They don't want you to know that there are any other ideas out there. They don't want you to know anything. So my question is, if the ultimate goal for them is to, quote, decolonize American society and establish a new regime of counter-genocide, they're calling it, and counter-hegemony, which will displace white Christian culture that and lead to the, quote, this is what they're apparently seeking, regeneration of indigenous epistemic and cultural futurity, tongue twister. My question is, what's going to happen to the Christian who refuses to give up his beliefs? And then I will say this to you, and then I'm going to bring my guest in. The second crime scene is always worse than the first. So if you think that you're going to be complacent and appease them and allow them to spew this nonsense and get all of their ducks in a row and take over our culture, if you think you're going to do that and it will end well with you, you have another thing coming, because the second crime scene is always worse than the first. And folks, we are currently in the first crime scene.